Hello everyone, Professor Thompson here. This is a very quick breakdown of the Persuasive Presentation Restaurant Rant format sheet. The first page of this handout is meant to mirror some of the expected information that I expect from you prior to your outline. This is usually the front part of the outline, the first four things that I'm looking for. And those are the general purpose, your specific purpose, what your visual aids are, and what your organizational structure is. These kind of preface or surface level pieces of information help me understand where you're hoping to go with any message. So if you look back to even our first presentations, these were some of the things I asked you to share before your outline. At any rate, your general purpose for this upcoming presentation is simply to persuade. Your specific purpose answers the question, what do I want my audience to think, feel, know, or understand by the conclusion of this speech? At a very basic level, there's three parts of this that I could say: R, A, C, and E. So if I was to use this acronym RACE to describe what you might use as your specific purpose now, the R stands for reinforce. Reinforce a specific behavior that we're already doing. So for instance, in my face-to-face class yesterday, we were all talking about Domino's Pizza, and it was discovered that 21 of the 21 people in the classroom had eaten Domino's Pizza. So it seems fairly safe to assume that there is a very, very large percentage of people who had eaten that, or probably have eaten that, if we were choosing that restaurant in our class. The same could be said if we were choosing a restaurant like McDonald's or something, right? So that's the R, and part of persuasion is to reinforce existing behaviors. A stands for alter an existing behavior. So, for instance, if we already have an existing behavior of eating hamburgers, which is very, very likely, statistics show that there is more people out there eating beef than there are vegetarians, so a large percentage of the class probably eats burgers. How do we redirect this existing action of eating a hamburger to, say, a place like Portillo's, or That Burger Joint, or Five Guys Burgers, or Smash Burger? So redirection really is this idea of altering. The C stands for cease an existing behavior, which means to stop something we're currently doing. So maybe you wanted to advocate to stop going and eating at Taco Bell, and you were going to have a variety of reasons or arguments and supporting evidence to illustrate why we should stop eating at Taco Bell, or whatever restaurant you might choose. And then the last part of the acronym, the E, stands for enact a new behavior. So E stands for enact. Are you wanting to start something that we probably don't do already? So maybe you're wanting to talk about a very, very small restaurant that maybe not many people have heard of. Maybe I could choose the restaurant Cheesy's, which is in downtown Chicago, kind of on the north side, I think. And my guess is maybe not a lot of people have ever heard of that place or ever eaten there. And so by me giving a persuasive speech on that restaurant, my goal would be create actuation, or create action, and get you to eat at a place you haven't eaten at before. So you're going to need to identify what your specific purpose is. Visual aids, you're required to have two for this speech. One is a video clip or a handout. So you need to determine which one you're going to use for your first visual aid, and then whatever secondary visual aid you'll also have. You might choose to use a video clip for number one and a handout for number two, which is perfectly fine. You might choose to bring an object for your second one, or use PowerPoint, or show a picture, something of that nature. Organizational structure points now. This is really the bulk of your speech, the body of your speech. Your introduction and conclusion of the speech is very similar to previous presentations, but it's the body of your speech here that this handout really focuses on. So what organizational structure are you going to use? This first one, statement of reasons, is very simple in nature. A lot of students find that it is very closely related to, say, an informative speech. But the key to a statement of reasons presentation really is brainstorming and prioritization. So you want to make sure that you don't skip those two steps if you're going to choose a statement of reasons speech. Comparative advantage really lends itself to where you would compare your restaurant to another one. You want to make sure you're making comparisons that are apples to apples comparisons. You wouldn't want to compare Burger King to something like Red Lobster. That just wouldn't necessarily be a good comparison. So you want to make sure if you're going to compare Giordano's as a pizzeria, you might want to compare it to something like Gino's East or something. Criteria satisfaction. This really identifies what are the criteria that you're going to be identifying that your restaurant meets. Very popular for a restaurant speech, so I would maybe see that many of you might use a criteria satisfaction. Problem solution. Is there a problem that's out there that your restaurant can solve? So maybe your restaurant solves the problem that there's not many completely vegan restaurants, and your restaurant is a complete vegan attraction where people who choose to maintain a vegan lifestyle should flock to because of what they're doing within their new approach. So you might talk about how there exists a problem out there, and then how your restaurant as a vegan institution is a solution to that. And maybe discuss the advantages to that particular solution. So Monroe's motivated sequence is one that I know your book talks about, but you probably won't be approaching for this type of presentation. If you have specific questions on that one, you might just let me know. So again, if you're doing a statement of reasons speech, if we go back to the top, to the very first one, I just want to emphasize that I mentioned brainstorming was the key, and brainstorming was the first thing that I didn't want you to skip over. You should be coming up with 8, 9, 10, 11 different reasons why someone should want to go to your restaurant. Maybe that has to do with the food, the quality of the food, the ambiance of the restaurant, the price, a specific menu entree that is unique, something it's famous for. Could have to do with history. I don't know, but the point is you need to develop and brainstorm specific to the research you've done on your restaurant, all the different reasons why someone would want to go to this place. And then what you need to do after you've brainstormed, and you've truly brainstormed, is you need to prioritize which are the most significant reasons that one would want to go there. You've listed 8, 9, 10 of them. Which one would be the most persuasive? And I want you to think about your audience and take them into account and really say, well, if my audience is made up of single parents who are looking to refine their budgets, or my audience is made up of college students, maybe price is a key factor, and that might be the issue. If my audience is full of people who are healthy, maybe I need to figure out some sort of health-related reasons. But you make sure your strongest reasons are first. I definitely want to throw caution into the wind here and say that history of your restaurant may not be that one of the top 2 or 3 reasons why someone should go to your restaurant. And so I really kind of advocating against you generating a whole body point about the history or timeline of your restaurant. Okay, so moving on to the next pattern, comparative advantages. If you choose this, again, as I said 5 minutes ago, you might want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and making a good comparative restaurant in this type of presentation. But and this one here, you want to make sure you're doing the research not only on your organization, but also on the other restaurant that you've chosen. So if you're going to talk about the different caloric options, then calories are going to be one of the advantages that your restaurant serves over another. You're going to have to be able to speak articulately that, here's the calorie difference and options that something like a Subway might have over a Jimmy John's or something. Okay, so what advantages does yours have over other options that are similar? Criterion satisfaction. Again, this is one that I said I might see from many of you, because it has, first of all, it has 2 body points, and so you're only really developing those 2 core points. Main point number 1 is going to highlight 3 specific reasons or criteria that make a restaurant superior. So, I mean, you could speak about the restaurant business as a whole, and you might visit a website, something like Zagat or AAA diamond ratings, and you might visit these websites that actually list specific restaurant criteria that make a restaurant stand out, something that's going to make it a good restaurant. These are actionable, these are objective criteria that any person who's looking for a restaurant could measure all restaurants against to say it's either good or bad. So identify the 3 criteria that you want to use, and then body point 2 is all about, this is how my restaurant meets those criteria. You might even look for specific criteria that are a part of your genre, your collection, your taste. So there might be different criteria that make a Chinese restaurant superior over others. There might be specific criteria that a pizza or Italian restaurant might have that might be different than a Mexican restaurant, or American fare, or Greek fare, or Polish fare, or Lithuanian food. I mean, you know, so as we go through the plethora of cultural types of restaurants, we definitely know from our own past experiences that we feel a difference in the quality. But if we were to have some sort of measurable criteria, what would those criteria be? And that's what body point 1 is really about. Okay, so, and then I said here, and I clearly tried to articulate here, what would problem solution look like, and then Monroe's motivated sequence. So I've really tried to boil this down and keep it as simple as possible. I've given you this particular handout in both an email, and I've posted an announcement into the course announcements. If you have additional questions about this, please don't hesitate to email me.